Welcome back to MyFin Journey. Today's guest is Rohit Sood, a strategic operator who has successfully helped build and scale organizations in the life sciences space through a combination of strategic vision, operational execution, and he's done it for over 50 brands, guiding them to commercialization with 6 successful US and European launches. Rohit brings a rare blend of strategic foresight and hands on execution that senior leaders rely on to drive measurable top line growth while optimizing operations. From guiding corporations and companies through mergers and acquisition integration to organizational transformation, from leading R&D optimization to digital innovation initiatives, Rohit has spent his career solving problems that keep high-level executives awake at night, whether it's accelerating therapeutic area growth or managing cross functional teams through critical inflection points. His work is all about creating lasting competitive advantage and sustainable growth. If any of that sounded like jargon to you, that's why you need to tune into this episode to really understand how high performers unpack growth despite obstacles, because those obstacles are really just an opportunity in disguise. Rohit, welcome to MyFin Journey.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. So Rohit, I want to dive right in. Obviously, I mentioned a lot of data points. I mentioned high level, a lot of different areas where you're excelling. But I'm curious to understand, how did you get to where you are today, where high performing people who are very good at their jobs, are struggling with problems and turning to you?
I would say my story is like in different chapters. I came to the US when I was 17, did my undergrad here, I studied computer science and applied math, and actually wasn't a great student, but I wanted to come to the US, had a great opportunity, and just worked my way. I would say, just the hard work, just determination, got my first job. Took a while to realize that coding wasn't my forte and that I needed to do something else. And I worked on Wall Street, built trading systems, designed trading floors, got to travel a lot, and realized that, I was doing what I was doing because my dad asked me to and not really what I wanted to do, however good that advice was. And so I then transitioned, went back to business school, and the fortune of joining J&J as an intern for 9 months in licensing. So you and I share that that alma mater there, and graduated. Really wanted to work for J&J and Roche, but different times wasn't meant to be. I went to business school quite late in my life and ended up going to what I knew well, which was consulting. So that's where my second chapter began as a strategy consultant. I would say a big part of my success has been just being lucky in some ways. Let's not underestimate that. And having some incredible mentors. Mentors that know how to motivate you, kind of set you right when you're not thinking correctly, who give you a second chance because God only knows how many mistakes we've all made in our lives, and have guided you. And even though you may lose touch, but you don't forget them because they kind of helped you get to where you are. And ended up actually, as a strategy consultant, ended up running a global commercial advisory business, which was fantastic because you learn how to not just manage people but also manage customers, advise customers. You're getting the operational experience on one end of running a consulting business, but you're also getting the strategy experience of advising customers on how do they increase their market cap, how do they increase their revenues, how do they improve their operational efficiencies. And then my third chapter began, which when I realized, after 15 and a half years of doing consulting, that it's one thing about being a strategy consultant, and it's another thing about running a biotech. And I had this opportunity to join a company called Eversana and build out their complete commercialization model, which was an outsourcing of the entire end-to-end commercial function. And we got to build a really incredible team of industry operators, and all of them I keep in touch with. My leadership team and I have a quarterly get together, virtual as it may be. We're actually going to get together at Assembia in 3 weeks, and so it was a really great experience in learning the plumbing and how things should be connected and how we should be operationalizing commercial functions to execute, to achieve launch forecasts, to kind of make sure that customers are engaged the right way, etc. And I left Eversana and then thought I was done from a, that I wasn't going to do much. And then I had this great opportunity to consult with a couple of great PE firms. I ended up joining Sorcero, an AI company, which was everyone's talking about it. So I learned a lot about AI, medical affairs, how to implement AI, the issues that customers feel and are concerned about AI, and what is the right way to be AI ready, as well as building a governance structure to kind of manage AI. And so that when I left Sorcero after we closed Series B, that's where my path has led me today, where I'm started my own venture. It's called Venture Life Sciences. I'm working with startups and small companies just to help them think through go to market, think about commercial readiness, think about digital transformation, AI readiness. And I'm actually coaching a couple of executives. So those are the areas that are of interest to me. And along the way, I got to teach a couple of classes. I'm teaching a course at Rutgers Business School and working on a course at Ole Miss in the pharmacy school. So really focus on passion projects, things get me excited, where I'm not doing this for money anymore. It's more like these are things I enjoy doing, so I'm just going to do it.
Love that, Rohit. I love not only the journey, but like the clarity with which you communicated it. So I want to thank you for that, Rohit. But I also want to dive a little deeper because in the beginning of the journey it was, hey, I'm not that good of a student, but somehow I made it to America, which I assume you were still a very good student, but maybe comparing yourselves to others who are maybe better. So I want to unpack that. But then I also want to unpack how you ended by saying, hey, it was not about the money and I don't need to worry about money. Most people, in my opinion, based on my experience, etc., never get to the point where they don't need to worry about money. So I want to kind of understand, how did you go from that student who was maybe not doing the best in class to that individual who has the flexibility to not worry and the freedom to not worry about money?
I would say undergraduate experience was very interesting for me. I very late in life realized how much of a culture shock that was. At that time, I was either immature, ignorant, name the adjective, but I was young. And I left a full ride in my freshman year to go to a school where I had no money, no scholarship. And my dad had promised a certain amount, but not enough. So I ended up spending most of my time trying to pay for school. um, so I didn't really go to class as much. And honestly, I was not interested in studying. And I think part of it was also going into engineering and computer science, which wasn't of interest, also made me realize that if I had done maybe studied something else, I would have been in a different place in life, but I would have probably gotten better grades. So it wasn't about the grades. It was more about, just let's get a degree and get a job. I think I discovered my interest in academia when I went for my first master's. I did my master's in telecom, and I actually started to enjoy the engineering and the network programming aspect of it. And it was
Was
like
that surreal for you?
it was because all of a sudden it was like I have a 3.8 GPA. Like I never thought I was that kind of student, right? I remember my first year at Rutgers Business School. I had a 3.95, right? And so I enjoyed business school. I think it was all of a sudden I kind of found what I was interested in doing, what I actually enjoyed, and also like I could see what the future was. But I I don't know. This may be naive or this interesting. I've never made decisions based on money. It was more like, what do I want to do next? How do I do it? Am I going to have fun? So part of it may be just ignorance, and saying, let's hope for the best, see what happens. Part of it is also just a belief that you're going to make it happen and you're just going to be successful, whatever the definition of success is. And then, I think I got, like I said, I really did get lucky in some ways where I was at the right place, right time, worked for the strategy consulting firm, had some incredible years, got to travel to 31 countries and work with different cultures, different organizations. And so it's brought me to this point where it's like, I wouldn't say money is not important because you do need to make money, but it's not the driving force of what I'm doing, right? I don't think it's ever been. So it's been kind of like ingrained that just go do, have fun, enjoy, live life, learn. Learning is really important for me. I always say there's these four things that I think about every time I have taken on a new role or new job. Am I having fun? Am I learning? Am I working for great people? And am I making an impact? Right? If those four criteria are met, I feel good about it. Anytime one of those four is out of whack, that's when I know it's time to either move or maybe not the right place for me.
I love that, Rohit. So it feels like, you were looking to optimize more to grow rather than for salary throughout your career to say, hey, this is what I'm doing and I enjoy it. Let me go and get maybe further upskilled. Let me go back to college. Let me get that MBA. Let me get that master's degree, etc. Along that journey, Rohit, it feels like to some degree you went from maybe not, maybe studying because your dad said to do a certain
Yeah.
profession to like, hey, this is what I wanted to do and this is what I want to do and this is my passion. Before you actually went back for that master's program, that first master's program, was there a point where you were questioning the value of education altogether?
No, I think some of that may be inherently cultural, because, in Mustafa, in our culture, Southeast Asian, we're like, you got to go to school, right? I don't think I ever questioned that. I think I did question what I studied,
Okay.
because I think I would have done better if I had gone into either poli sci or education or something different, right? Because I love teaching. And so, I could have been in a whole different path. I may not be as financially independent, but different path. I think my love for learning came much later in life. Like when I started doing my first master's, that's when I said, this is kind of fun. And I had just gotten married. So I was doing it part time, working and being married. But it was fun. Like learning became fun. And I think it's a self-fulfilling thing. When you start enjoying something, you study more and you do better and then you enjoy it more, right? So it's like that motion that just happened. And I don't know if there was any moment that caused it. It happened.
I love that. I love that, Rohit. So, Rohit, next I was wondering, if you don't mind me asking, you're undergraduate and you had two master's degrees, I believe. Are they all from Rutgers or different
No,
schools?
so my undergrad was from Stony Brook. My first master's was from Pace University. Second was from Rutgers, and I'm actually doing my doctorate right now from the Swiss School of Business Management in oncology operating models. Like it's again like who would have thought that I would have gone on this journey for a guy who hated studying? But it's again things that I want to do. It's kind of fun. And along the way, I've got these great opportunities to teach at Rutgers again, like a full course on field management. I'm working on a course with a friend of mine at Ole Miss on medical affairs. So it's kind of just fun things. It's a way of giving back and at the same time learning. Because teaching requires a level of focus and you've got to make it interesting so people enjoy rather than making it too theoretical, right? It's got to be the balance between theoretical and practical.
I love that you touched on that because sometimes people have the mentality that school is just all theory and there's no application in the real world. But for somebody with your experience and your skill set, how do you respond to that narrative?
If it's all theory, then you're just going to be someone who's going to regurgitate things when you come out, right? And I think in some ways, most of undergraduate programs are very theoretical. What I enjoyed in my master's, and if I would say what really got me excited about learning was the application. Like we had done socket and network programming undergrad on my undergrad in C, and I hated it. And we did the same thing, but we actually built a system that communicated with each other. And so you got to feel it and see it and learn from the mistakes of these pointers that go into nowhere, right? Like let's rethink all these things. I think without the application approach, you're essentially wasting your education. Like one of the things that when we taught the Rutgers field management course, we generated synthetic data using AI on three different brands: primary care, specialty, and rare disease. And it wasn't data as in just claims. So we generated a secondary research report, primary research report with physicians, payers, and patients. And the students who were in the cohort in the class were basically asked to apply the lessons learned in each lecture using the data that they were given to the drug that they were assigned and build a go-to-market strategy, which was their capstone project. And, along the way, we gave them feedback on, and every week they had to write a 3-page paper on that application. But along the way, you could see people who were mailing it in because many of them are working full time. And you had to give them that feedback that, guys, if this is how you're showing up here, you're probably showing up like this at work as well. When you're presenting your information or writing because there's long form writing, put some thought into it, like inconsistency in writing, not framing the topic, not building on previous week's work, sourcing that is all over the place and no one understands. Like, if you just say Sood 2026, doesn't mean anything. You got to say, okay, it was a last lecture given by so and so on this date on this topic, and that's what you are referencing, right? A lot of AI generated stuff. Actually, I wouldn't say a lot, some that, you can use AI plagiarism checkers to kind of see if it was AI written. So these are things that are like, you give them feedback and, you could see the students getting better and better. And I always tell, and our feedback, because I did have another co-teacher with me, our feedback to them was like, we don't care about what happened in the last 3 weeks. We care about what's happening in the fourth week. And then the last 4 weeks, we don't care. We care about the fifth week. So if we see you improving, because think about it, all these MBA students are thinking, am I getting an A minus or a B plus, right? Nobody gets below a B, which is weird. And we would tell them, the thing we want you to get out of this class is, can you apply what you learned, right? And two of them have gotten new jobs in sales as a result of it. Which is fascinating to me because it says, okay, they got it, they applied it, and they're doing something with it. And there's a sense of pride from it. Like, what we taught actually resonated.
And do you feel like you saw that journey play out in your own life, going from undergraduate, where it was just like learn and regurgitate, versus the master's programs, where it was, hey, let's learn this and apply it in your own life. And now you're in a
Yes,
position to give back?
yes. And I would say also some of it is maturity, right? Like you grow up and you start thinking differently. And the work experience also helps you think differently rather than like, get up in the morning, I'm going to class. Okay, now what? Okay, sleep. Maybe I was on a few collegiate teams. Okay, we go work out. We did that, come back, and nothing more. But as you grow older, you start thinking about this. Okay, so I learned this, like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I did this class in abstract algebra in undergrad. I still don't remember what I studied. I don't know what we applied, right? Groups, subgroups, homomorphisms. I remember those topics, but I have no idea what we were doing, right? Coming into grad school, and we talked about segmentation and we talked about positioning and we talked about targeting, call planning. It's like, I get it. Like it's practical, right? Because part of it also, you've grown up, you're thinking about what does it mean, how do you do it, and two, the topic is different. It's more a topic of interest rather than abstract algebra, which was not.
I love that. So, Rohit, do you have any kids?
No, we don't have any children, so
Okay.
we have a lot of furry babies.
Any nieces, nephews?
We have a big family. My mom comes from 7 brothers and sisters, dad comes from 3, and even a lot of cousins, their cousins. So there's a lot of cousins, lots of
So,
cousins.
are there any points where younger family members kind of come to you looking for advice about schools, where to apply, etc.?
Not yet, although I have advised a few recent grads. It's kind of like a passion now where I'm helping them think through how do you find jobs and internships. And one of my success stories now works for Boston Consulting Group. Another one ended up going to grad school studying psychology, where I helped him think about psychology a little bit beyond clinical, to think about sports and behavioral and other things. So just put them in touch, help them clean up their resumes, help them clean up their LinkedIn profile. Because one of the things I've realized about students who are graduating, no one is helping them think about the practical things about job search. No one is role playing with them to say, what questions are you going to ask? Like, how do you prepare for this? That if I'm meeting Mustafa for the first time, I want to learn about Mustafa, right? It can't be talking about me all day long, right? So I think it's like these practical nuggets, I think, help them, uh, you know, just find themselves a little bit, in terms of how they position themselves, be more polished, and hopefully, it'll stay with them for a long time, right?
So it feels
Helping another kid right now just think about graduating and what does he want to do. He's a Northeastern University. He's a former colleague's son, and it's just fun sitting down and listening to them. And I remember myself in those shoes. We had all these weird ideas and crazy thoughts, and no one really set us straight. Like, hey, yes, that's one way of thinking about it, but this is how it works, right? So think differently. Like things they put in their resume was interesting. Like someone told them, don't put this in your resume. I'm like, why not? Because my sister told me not to. That's like fascinating. It makes you an interesting person. It's how you put it in there for a conversation. Simple things.
I love that, Rohit. And do you feel like people just lack those soft skills that you're alluding to and that they're more picked up from experience rather than learning it in school or having, the career fairs
I
in your
don't know if
local
they're
school help you with
lacking
this?
individually. I don't think people are lacking this individually. I think, of course, they are introverts and they are extroverts. I think part of it is no one's ever had a conversation with them about what they should be thinking about or what their interests are, and how do you kind of expand on that interest rather than going in a one track. Psychology is psychology, but if you start thinking about sports, behavior, organizational, now it becomes a whole different pathway, right? The whole course we are going to do in medical affairs at this pharmacy school is because pharmacists come out and they think clinical pharmacy. There's a whole world in agency and pharma that pharmacists can make a massive impact on, right? There's a system of care pharmacy, which is different than, your neighborhood pharmacist, right? There's all these levels and areas that we want to kind of introduce them to so they get to see, okay, I should think about these other things as well.
I
Is
love that, Rohit.
exposure. It's exposure. That's all it is. Just making them think broader.
And it feels like the beautiful way that you approach this, Rohit, is not rooted or limited by your experience, but more to say, like, how can you look at your situation, your area of expertise, what you're good at, and really find a niche or a role that really helps you thrive and helps you create maximum value while fueling your passions.
I think, like, I used to do these sessions for new students at Rutgers for a while. And, one of the things we would talk about is mentors. And I used to say, there's such a thing as a bad mentor. Not all mentors are good. And there was a kind of a perplexing, you look at their eyes and like, what do you mean? And I said, so good mentors ask you questions. They may lead you to a solution, but they don't tell you what a solution is. They make you think. They kind of expose you to bigger things. They help you connect the dots. And I think it's the same when it comes to people. You help them think about things and you help them realize for themselves, like, okay, I should think about this. Maybe I don't want to do it. Or maybe Rohit's not giving me good advice, and that's okay. It's an opinion, right? But you nurture that discussion and you help them move forward, and hopefully they end up where they want to end up. And what's the worst that's going to happen? You do a job and you hate it and you go somewhere else, right? Or you try something else. It's the first step you just got to take and say, I want to do this. And sometimes it's not in the cards.
I love that, Rohit. So how do you reconcile that with maybe the narrative or the idea that like you have to mentor to like maybe set somebody straight, maybe kind of clean up the fluff and give them clarity versus, hey, maybe I'm actually positioning myself as a bad mentor and maybe I don't know what's
I
best.
think
Maybe
it's
that lack of
intent. I think it's
okay.
intent, right? So, like bosses make terrible mentors in general. It's a very generalized statement because bosses don't
Because
want
of
you
their
to quit
bias?
because they
Okay.
want to hold on to you, right? Like I'm coaching you. Whereas you're trying to get their job and do different things and learn different things, right? I remember at one point early in my career, well, I was much older. Someone told me, don't go there because we were thinking about promoting you. And I'm thinking, I want to go there because I want to learn something else, right? And so it delayed my promotion by a year and a half, but it allowed me to get to where I am today. Like this whole, I kind of created my own rotational program, right? So the intent matters, right? And mentors can be anyone. A mentor can be a friend, someone who's just making you think about stuff like, hey, Mustafa, that's a really bad idea. Why are you doing this, right? Have you thought about this? A mentor could be your dad and mom, right? A lot of depends on the relationship and the intention. It could be a former client. Some of my best mentors are former clients, and there are some mentors that don't they even think of me of themselves as my mentor, but I think of them as my mentor because I actually will call them once in a while. Hey, I'm struggling with this. I actually got a job because I called someone and said, I'm struggling with this. Just want to talk to you. He said, why don't you come work for me? It was like this weirdest thing. And I was like, I didn't call you for a job. And he's like, I know, but come work for me. I'm looking for this. And guess what? I ended up working there. Right. So these are like these very interesting dynamics where you're approaching things from a point of view that I want to learn, or you as a mentor, you're approaching like I want to make sure that they are thinking about the right thing.
So
And
Rohit,
if
do you
you
feel
if you
like
have that, you can actually you'll see positive things come out.
So, Rohit, do you feel like the same kind of happens when people are on their personal finance journey, where initially they don't really know where they're going, they're looking for clarity, and then ideally over time they find that clarity and they're able to scale?
Yeah, like I'll tell you, when I started my first job, I was making 24,000 a year in New York City. Right now, I'm dating myself. 24,000 at that time was still not enough money, and I still remember calling my friends and saying, "How much money do you have for beer this weekend? Because we're getting paid on Monday or something like that." Right? Like it was not great. I think as you move up and you start taking on more responsibility and your financial or economic situation starts changing, I think you've got to start thinking about where you invest, who can help you. I spent the first decade or something trying to like invest in the market and etc. And my wife asked me a very important question: are you a professional investor? And I'm like, no. I said, then why don't you hire someone who can help you think about it so you can spend your time doing things that are you're good at? Guess what? Hired a professional, a financial advisor 15 years ago, and we haven't looked back. And he has been incredible. Like he's made us think about things. He's helped us consolidate. He's the one who came to me like 5 years ago, say, Rohit, you're ready to retire. You've got hit your number. I said, no, I'm not ready. I thought I was ready. I'm not ready yet. I still want to work a little bit. So I think that's what happened, right? Again, financial advisor is like a mentor, like a good one is making you think about things. He helped us. So I was very interested in real estate like yourself, maybe not to the degree at you are. And my wife is very risk averse. So every bonus that I was making in consulting, I wanted to go buy a place. At that time, Hoboken was a very hot market, still is. It was like up and coming. And we ended up investing in a few later on. And actually, literally one day just said, I'm just going to buy this place as a real estate investment. And I did some numbers, did some research, and I said, we'll make money and, cash flow positive. That was the objective. And, we've created a little of a real estate portfolio now. And we got lucky in some ways, right? Like I just put my foot down, I'm going to do it. And she's come around and she actually manages all that right now. So it's having that financial advisor for now 15 something years who've kind of grown with us and has helped us think through things, mortgages, interest only mortgage. I was really afraid of doing that, right? And he asked me a simple question: how many years do you want to stay here? I said 10 years. They're like, why don't you do an interest only loan? Like things that all our biases that we have about investments, someone makes you think differently. That's the same thing as mentoring.
And at that point in time, when your wife said that, like, hey, you're not a professional trader, you're not in wealth management professionally, why don't you build a team? Were you already running your own team at work?
At work, I was. So I'll give you a very interesting story. Business school, all of us want to be hedge fund managers and blah, blah, blah. I had the same dreams at one point, at least. And so, January of, I think, my first fall semester, so January before the spring semester started, I started day trading. I made $1,000 profit every day for 15 days. On the 16th day, I lost $18,000. That was it. Confidence gone. I'm not going to trade anymore. We're going to get a professional to help you kind of manage things long term, right? So stuff like that also kind of helped me kind of galvanize this thinking around, stop doing something that you either don't have the knack for or the time for, because you're thinking professionally, you're going to be doing something else.
The good thing is you didn't repeat that, two or three times.
I've done other dumb things, Mustafa. We all have. So
True.
there's too many of these battle scars. I think after at this point in my career and life, everyone should have scars if they've done things, so you learn from it.
I couldn't agree more. Rohit, this has been a great conversation. If somebody's listening to it, what would be the best way for them to get into contact with you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I've been writing a lot of blogs lately on AI. If someone is interested in talking to me about anything AI or any of the things that, you know, you found interesting, just send me a note on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I pretty much look at it twice a day, sometimes more, but I'm trying to be more disciplined about it. But happy to have a chat about this and other areas. If someone is a life science person and they want to talk about life science, if they want to talk about mentoring, teaching, giving back, I got a lot of interests. So I'm happy to entertain anyone.
I love it, Rohit. Before we sign off, I wanted to understand from your perspective. You're obviously very good at what you do. You spend time actually teaching people in real life in classes, you spend time mentoring people as well. Why do you spend time on LinkedIn?
Two reasons. One, it's my way of sharing what I think and know with a very broad community. Because I do have, I think, 1,000 connections right now. Not all in life sciences. I'll connect with anyone. Anyone wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them. That's my approach because you never know when you can help someone and where someone all of a sudden comes to you and is like, hey, I need your help here, right? It happens. I have never made connections with the intention of that I'm going to get something out of it. It's like if I think someone needs, they should talk to each other, just talk. And if you don't want to talk, that's okay. I just connected you. So I do view my role as a connector. So the first thing is more like I share what I think and know. And, if people find it interesting, some of them will reach out, some of them will just like, some of them will comment. If they disagree, I get more excited because I want to hear the other point of view. The second is it also gives me a very good pulse on some of the groups that I'm part of as to what's happening in the marketplace in real time. Right. So I'm like very active in like launch readiness groups. I'm very active in AI groups. Just I observe them. There are some folks that have incredible newsletters that I subscribe to. There's actually a high school friend of mine, Vivek Gambhir. He's got Monday AM that he writes that is really cool because it's about management and stuff. It's just his point of view, ex Harvard Business School guy. So these are the kinds of things where it's like learning and keeping in touch. I think the day I say I'm done, I'll disappear from LinkedIn because then I'm done. And I don't think I'm there yet. Because my wife did that. She decided she was done, I think, 7 years ago. And she just eliminated her LinkedIn profile. She's like, I'm done. And so I'm like, all right. So I think when it's time, it'll be time.
I hear you. I think that's very eloquently stated. When it's time, it'll be time. For you, when you're advising all these students, when you're helping them directly or indirectly get new jobs, do you feel like you're talking to them about personal branding and how powerful LinkedIn is? Or is it more of an afterthought?
Absolutely. We start with that. Like what message and perception message you want to send and what perception do you want to create, right? So things like your resume, what you put in it, right? This kid that I know who's done really well for himself spent a year in New Zealand on a farm, top student from Colombia, and someone told him, "Don't put that on your resume." I was like, "That's the first thing I would like, somewhere I would put in there because it'll say like, oh, what is this? I want to talk about this because it makes you interesting, right?" And he said, "My sister told me not to put it." And I'm like, "All right, no, put it in there, right?" So it creates this very unique story. And then the question is, how do you narrate that story? But the narration comes second. The first is to learn about the other person, right? It's like your first date. If you talk about yourself, you're probably not getting your second date, right? So it's got to be about the other person. It requires someone to do homework about the person, their company, right? And I have this other story. There's this one kid I talked to, and I introduced him to some of my colleagues. A couple of them are CEOs of companies right now. And, one of them came and told me, Rohit, this guy was not prepared. So I went back to him. I was like, what happened? Like, how did the meeting go? He's like, it went great. I said, let me tell you the feedback. You were not prepared. Here's why you were not prepared. So I got very tangible feedback. Next meeting that he went,
Which
very
is the
different.
favor. Everybody in the workflow went out of their way to give that feedback. Your friend went back
Feedback,
to you to
right?
say,
Because
hey,
I went, I
which
want to
is
know how it went. I'm introducing you to someone who's a CEO. You better not screw it up, right? Like, but you could see the nerves, right? You're talking to a CEO, you're a young kid, 23 or 22-year-old, just graduating college. You're talking to a 50 something, runs a 50 million, $60 million company with like 50, 30, 40 people in it. And it can be intimidating, right? So it's like, how do you get these guys to just think a little bit, breathe, ask questions, come prepared. Don't, and sometimes I'll do a role play. I said, so imagine I'm this person, talk to me, right? What does the discussion look like? Ask me the questions. What is the question? Ask me about my career journey. Like, how did you arrive at what where you've arrived at? Like, who doesn't like talking about themselves? So if you are a student who are graduating from college and you have this job interview and you actually, at the end of the case study or whatever you have, and someone says, hey, do you have any questions for me? I said, I have a lot of questions, but would you mind just giving me a short overview of how did you arrive at where you did? Tell me about your journey. That's a very different way of having a conversation with someone, right? And then you can dive deeper into technical questions, business questions, all that stuff. But get the person to open up. And if you can do that right at the beginning of the interview, that's brilliant because it's a connection. That's the way to think about it.
I love it, Rohit. I love it because it's very actionable for the young people listening to this on how to ultimately win friends and influence people. If you're in a position where you can understand that person's journey, you're in a position to understand their psychology, how they think about life, how they think about the role that they're probably hiring for.
Everything we do is a people business, everything, right? So you have to learn, even in this AI world, I think, the empathy, the human skills, the influencing skills, those things will never go away. They may be enabled by AI, as in you do your homework with AI, but that connection, that connectivity that you have with the person sitting on the other side will never go away, right? So I think that skill of just connecting with people, listening to people should still be top of mind, along with all the other skills that you're building, right? And when it comes to job hunting and when it comes to thinking about, big decisions, think about these things. It's who can help you? How do you network? How do you engage? How do you build that relationship? Your first meeting is always very superficial, but if you leave a mark with something that is uniquely you, um, which is very hard to qualify or quantify, it resonates for the person sitting on the side, and it leads to really good things.
I
And if
hear
they
you.
can't
I hear
offer
you.
you a job, they will think about you and connect you with someone, and that is also possible.
Because you effectively networked with them. You were able to
And,
turn them
and
into an ally on your journey.
an ally, and it's someone's like, I like this kid. I don't have anything. Let me look around because I'll give you an example. So this kid who was a psych major who's now doing his grad school, right? When I left, I had some time, like a month. So he came to me, he was at Fordham, and we were just looking at his resume, helping him out. So I said, hey, I have this friend, DJ, runs this great company. They do this thing about neutral thinking and started off with professional athletes. Now they're talking to organizations. You want to learn about this side of the business. And it was like, great. So I said, okay, do this homework, go learn, blah, blah, blah. And I said, called up DJ. I said, DJ, I have this kid mentoring. I think he's a big soccer guy. Would you mind just talking to him? I didn't say give him a job, talking to him. And to the kid's credit, in the meeting, because he had done his homework, he said, do you ever hire interns? That summer he interned for them and did really well. Like every time I connect with DJ today, he's like, hey, how's Connor doing? Right? Yeah, Connor should call you. Hey, Connor, call this guy because he's so busy. He's forgotten about keeping that relationship. Right? So he's like, yeah, I know. I should call him. I'm like, call him, because he was asking about you. And because he left a mark, right? Because which 22-year-old said, hey, do you hire interns? At the right point in the discussion.
That's so incredibly insightful, Rohit. I've loved it because the takeaway for anyone who's listening is very clear. Scaling on your journey requires more than just vision. It's about listening, it's about strategic execution, it's about the ability to optimize at every level, in every interaction, because you never know when someone's opening the door for you to walk through. So,
And
once again, yeah,
one more thing I would say, which is even at my age, I struggle with is you got to ask for stuff, right? So if I'm struggling at this age, can you imagine a 22, 23-year-old, how they feel about it, right? If you don't
we're all
ask for
struggling.
something, if you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it. Or at least okay, the guy said no or she said no, right? But you asked for it, right? So you've got to start asking for things that in the right way, in the right time, with the right person, And of course, you can't ask to become the CEO if you're like a 23-year-old and have no track record and you've not proven anything. That's different unless you start your own company. But you got to be thoughtful about that as well.
I loved how you phrased that and framed it, Rohit. So I'm going to make an ask. If you're listening to this episode, hit the subscribe button, share this episode with a friend who will also find it valuable, hit the like button, and connect with Rohit. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a conversation. There's no huge commitment. Just send a connection request with Rohit on LinkedIn, and I'm sure it'll help you as you scale in a way that's hard to quantify today. I'll see you guys in the next episode.